Hi, I'm Thomas. Welcome to Project Management Fundamentals. This is our first lecture, Introduction to Project Management. Let's start with the definition of project management. Project management is planning, organizing, and managing resources to bring about the successful completion of specific outputs, outcomes, and goals. And an important point regarding project management is that projects have an end. So unlike the concept of business management, when we're discussing project management, we're talking about a process that has a beginning and an ending. There can be projects, maybe multiple projects, underway within a business or a government or an NGO, but we're looking at the concept of a finite life activity when we study project management. Let's think about this question. Why don't all projects succeed? There are several possible reasons. We have a group here. One is inadequate planning, failure to think at the beginning about everything that's involved throughout the life of the project. Another is inadequate resources. We're going to look at resource constraints as we study project management, and we just might not have the resources that we need. Another is unrealistic expectations. Someone might set a plan in place based on a resource allocation that doesn't provide for a realistic opportunity to succeed in the project. Another is inadequate risk management. Risk is an important concept in relation to project management, and failure to think about, plan for, and manage risk is a cause of project failure in some cases. And finally, failure to learn from mistakes. When something doesn't go as planned, you can use that as a learning opportunity. If you do, you'll improve in your performance, in your results in the second attempt. And if you don't, you won't learn from those mistakes and you'll continue to have the same problems in the future. Now, three important project management constraints are resources, scope, and time. Resources are referring to, usually resources comes down to money. This can be the people that we have available. This can be the space to work that we have available. This can be, the biggest one would be the funds that are or aren't available for a project. Next is scope. Ideally, we could solve every problem presented to us, or at least every problem relating to the topic of our project, but that probably isn't going to happen. As an example, if we're working in an education project, there should be some kind of a scope that tells us, are we working in primary education, secondary education, higher education, what area of a region or a country are we working in? We probably won't succeed if we're trying to address a very broad scope, the entire education system in a country, for example. We should narrow down that scope and be clear on what the scope of the project is, and not let that scope build up or creep to the point where we're spending more and more resources on a broader and broader scope that's taking us outside of our original objective. And third constraint is time. Projects have a limited amount of time available for completion, and that's going to put a limit on what we can do in any given project. Now let's look at project management and some of the particular aspects of project management in relation to the development sector. One, project management works towards social goals. These aren't always measurable based on an amount of money or a number, a quantitative measurement of results. Those measurements might be related to the goal, but the ultimate goal tends to be subjective. If we're looking for a healthy environment, a well-educated society, these things are subjective concepts that are difficult to measure quantitatively. We might make measurements that give us an indication of the ultimate goal, but because the goals are social in the development sector, this gives project management in development a different kind of aspect. Next, complex problems. We're not dealing with maximizing the profit for shareholders based on a new project. We're dealing with issues such as infant mortality, such as illiteracy, such as fatal disease, and these are things that are complex and require complex solutions. Project management in the development sector often occurs in challenging contexts. Limited resources, instability from the economic or from the political standpoint, or even situations where the environment is unsafe to be in, all relate to project management in the development sector. Complex relationships is another important component to consider. When we're dealing with project management and development, we're not just dealing with, for example, in business, an investor and a project manager. We're going to be dealing with perhaps an international donor, a local agency for project implementation, a government might be involved, and of course the local community is involved and should have the opportunity to have say in the project as well. So this creates a situation where we're dealing with complex relationships. The participatory approach means that unlike in perhaps a business project where you might only work again between the investor and the manager, the participatory concept means we want to get our customers involved. In other words, the community that we're serving. We want to give them the opportunity to give their feedback at the beginning and during the project, and also know what their evaluation is of the results after the project. So we want participation from the community benefiting from our project. And finally, the concept of transfer of learning means that once our project is done, we want to be able to pass something on to the community, and that's not necessarily just physical assets or just a system that we've put into place for the community to use. Rather, that goes beyond and also includes learning, new ideas, way of thinking, a way of doing things that relates to a better understanding in the community than existed before the project took place. Now let's look at important principles relating to project management in the development sector. Project management should be balanced. That means that all stages of the project from beginning to end are equally important and receive equal attention. Project management should be comprehensive. That means that the project management disciplines, which we're going to learn about, you could consider these project management professional competencies, are important throughout the life of the project. Particular skills and abilities that a project manager needs to be able to manage a project successfully. Projects should also be integrated as we move from one stage of the project to another, as we involve multiple parties, as we complete the project and transition from project management to ownership by the community of the project so that it is sustainable. These processes should be integrated and working together. Project management should also be participatory. Not only is the project manager and the funding entity involved, but the community is also involved and should have the opportunity to participate in decisions and give feedback relating to the project. And finally, project management is iterative. We make some progress, we might have some new ideas, we might want to make changes based on those new ideas, and the iterative concept means that the plan we have at the beginning isn't exactly the plan that we're going to need. That doesn't mean we don't plan. We do want to have a plan. But as we work through the various stages of the project life, we might make observations, get new information, and make some changes. That's the iterative feature of project management. Now let's talk about 4 competencies of project managers. These are technical skills. This is the focus of what we're learning in the course Project Management Fundamentals. What are the technical skills that you need to succeed as a project manager? You also need leadership ability. As a project manager, you're working with various groups of people, not just at your organization, but other groups as well, and leadership skills are important to succeeding in project management. Self-discipline is important. You need to have self-discipline to manage your time, your responsibilities, balance priorities, balance the interests of various stakeholders in successful project management. And finally, development sector expertise. In the case of development sector related project management, understanding the particulars of the development sector is important for a project manager to be successful in project management as it relates to development. Now let's briefly take a look at project management disciplines. These are the professional competencies that you need to succeed as a project manager. We'll see these occasionally throughout the course and look at each of them in more detail at the end of the course. These are scope management, time management, resource management, risk management, project justification management, and stakeholder management. These are all particular skills that you need to succeed as a project manager. And again, we'll address these in part as we work through the course, and then look at each of them in more detail towards the end of the course. And finally, our 6 phases of project management. This is going to be the heart of our content, where we're focusing on developing your technical skills to be a successful project manager. Phase 1 is identification and design, followed by setup. Phase 3, planning. Phase 4, implementation. Phase 5, monitoring, evaluation, and control. And finally, Phase 6 is transition. And in the final slide, we see a diagram of the 6 phases of project management, which comes from the PMD Pro guide. The PMD Pro is a project management for development certification that you're able to complete online if this certification is of interest to you. And we're going to be using the PMD Pro guide as the main source of reference for the content of this course.